Deputy Speaker, I rise to speak on the Online Safety Amendment Social Media Minimum Age Bill 2024. This bill seeks to address the significant challenges that social media has created for young people in Australia by setting a minimum age of 16 for platforms like TikTok, Snapchat and Instagram. The harms caused by social media are a big issue for my community, where I've spoken to countless parents, including many of my friends, who are deeply concerned about the impact that these platforms are having on their kids. And we're even seeing some of innovation coming out of Wentworth because of these concerns, including the 36 months program, as well as WaitMate. Earlier this year, my office conducted a survey on online safety, and the results were striking. Around 9 in 10 respondents expressed concern about the impact of social media on young people, highlighting issues like online bullying, screen addiction and exposure to harmful content. This bill seeks to respond to these concerns by requiring platforms to prevent under-16s from holding social media accounts and introducing strong penalties for platforms that fail to comply. Deputy Speaker, from eastern Sydney to every corner of Australia, parents are grappling with how to manage the impacts of children's and young people's social media use. Research by the e-Safety Commissioner shows that 95% of caregivers report online safety as one of their toughest parenting challenges, and these concerns were echoed in my own community survey. In Wentworth, 83% of respondents identified online bullying as their top worry, citing the emotional harm caused by negative interactions online. And these fears are not unfounded. 44% of Australian young people reported a negative online experience in the 6 months to September 2020, and 15% reported receiving threats or abuse online. In addition to bullying, 81% of people in my community were concerned about social media addiction, where endless scrolling and notifications disrupt sleep, relationships and academic performance. Again, their fears are well-founded. Professor Wayne Warburton's research demonstrates that screen addiction is linked to changes in children's brains, affecting decision-making, empathy and impulse control. A further 78% of people told me they were worried about exposure to pornography and its impact on perceptions of relationships and consent. And again, this was an issue raised with me by the faith leaders of Wentworth, who I brought together in a group, and they talked about this being one of the big issues that is raised in their faith communities. One parent shared their story. When my kids got given iPads at their tech public school, this is when a lot of problems started. My son was 8 years old when he was exposed to porn after a kid in the school group chat posted a word and he looked it up at his grandparents' house who didn't have the right internet controls. Needless to say, this had a devastating effect on our family. There were many other concerns shared with me. 75% were worried about content contributing to body image issues and eating disorders. 3/4 flagged concerns about harmful content directed at women, and 73% raised issues around violent and extreme content. My community experienced the consequences of the latter firsthand, following the tragedy at Bondi Junction earlier this year. In the aftermath of the stabbings, shocking videos of the attack circulated widely online, and parents I spoke to were horrified to find that much of this footage had been seen by their children on social media. It's clear that social media is not safe for young people and that the government does need to act. Deputy Speaker, before turning to the substance, I want to put on record my concerns with the process surrounding this bill, and it's been shambolic. It was introduced last Thursday and stakeholders were given 24 hours to submit to a Senate inquiry. This inquiry was due to report back in a few days, making it impossible for the committee to receive and consider sufficient evidence on this bill. As Digital Rights Watch said, "Never before have we witnessed such a shocking display of misusing the committee inquiry process as a sham consultation for the purpose of box-ticking community engagement. This is not how you make good laws." It is instead of a proper inquiry, the government intends to pass the bill in just a couple of days. It's completely inadequate to assess the consequences of such a wide-ranging piece of legislation that in many ways is actually world-leading. Is there sufficient evidence that banning social media for under-16s will work? Have privacy considerations been properly taken into account? Are there unintended consequences, like limiting young people's access to peer support networks, especially in areas like mental health? Maybe, maybe not. We certainly will not know by the time this bill has been rammed through the House, and that is hugely concerning. Unfortunately, we have seen this rushed approach before. Last week, changes to electoral laws that entrenched the incumbency advantage of the major parties were rammed through this House without an inquiry, despite their far-reaching consequences. And while this has been rushed through for political expediency, bills which could have been brought to the Parliament and where we have a lot of community support and, frankly, more investigation, have not been on the table, such as a ban on gambling advertising. Banning gambling ads is too complex, apparently, yet we're meant to also believe that an unprecedented overhaul of how young people access social media is straightforward and to pass in less than a week. The inconsistency is striking. Deputy Speaker, turning to the substance of the bill, there is no doubt that an age limit is a blunt instrument, but if well designed, it could be part of a solution to reducing social media harm. And it reflects the concerns of my community, where 64% of respondents said they supported a social media ban for under-16s. Parents in Wentworth don't think social media platforms are safe for young people, and they want action. They want their kids to grow up playing outside with their friends, to learn and grow from real experiences, rather than being sharing everything through the medium of a screen. And I acknowledge that age limit is not a silver bullet, but I do think it provides, probably the most important thing it provides, is parents with a powerful reason to say no. It sets a new standard in our community, backing in mums and dads who are worried about their kids' mental health, well-being and self-confidence. As a mother of a 12-year-old whose friends have just started to get social media accounts, it will be helpful to avoid those, because I don't want my children to miss out, and so many parents are the same. But at the same time, I don't want my children to be on these platforms. And I know that that is a feeling that many parents share. The age limit has had the support of numerous experts, such as the 120 mental health clinicians and experts, led by Professor Jonathan Haste, who joined together to call for a ban earlier this year. And when I speak to I think, one point that has been raised with me consistently, and I'll come back to again, is that this ban may not actually be effective, but still, I think the concern for most parents is to say it gives me a reason to say no. I also think the ban could provide a useful and powerful push to social media companies to start to take greater action to self-regulate, because they have not taken the action that they could, and I think this ban should hopefully send them a message that sort of the unfettered development with lack of regard for the impact on individuals will have consequences. There are also some important nuances built into the legislation. Messaging platforms, crucial for making personal connections, are exempt from the new age limit, as are online gaming services which already have age classifications. Services that primarily support the health or education of end users will also be excluded. And an independent review is planned after 2 years to assess the bill's effectiveness. Deputy Speaker, while parts of this legislation are positive, we need broader action to address online harm and stronger incentives for social media companies to make their platforms safe. The bill acknowledges that social media is not safe for young people, but it does nothing to address the ongoing dangers posed to older teenagers and adults, or for those young people who inevitably will get on these platforms, even with a social media ban in place. It does not address the wide range of factors contributing to harm, such as design features such as infinite scrolls, algorithms and content amplification systems. And it is founded on the hope that age assurance technologies will prove to be accurate and appropriate, despite the government's own age assurance trial having not even finished yet. Deputy Speaker, as numerous experts have pointed out, to create a genuinely safe and empowering online environment for all Australians, we need a systems approach. One critical component of this is an overarching duty of care for social media platforms. This would hold them accountable for the harm that they cause and compel them to take preventative action. Alongside this duty of care, we also need much more transparency around the algorithms used to serve content to users. This transparency should be going hand in hand with end-user control obligations, such as giving people the ability to opt out of targeted advertising and reset their personal algorithms. These measures are included in the private member's bill tabled yesterday by the member for Goldstein, and I want to commend her for the work that she has done in the space, and I wish that the government had not rushed through this legislation without using this as an opportunity for these wider reforms at the same time. As well as education, which was identified by the young people in Wentworth I spoke to as being critical for online safety. Deputy Speaker, I want to note 4 other concerns with the bill, all of which should have been addressed as part of a proper committee inquiry. The first relates to the unintended consequences of a blanket ban. As mental health organisations like Reach Out, Beyond Blue and the Black Dog Institute highlighted in their recent joint letter, there can be beneficial impacts of social media for young people. Banning it altogether could prevent them from accessing important peer support networks, particularly in relation to health issues, and especially for communities that could be otherwise isolated in their geographical community. So I urge the government to work with these organisations to ensure the access to crucial services is not affected. The unintended consequences of a blanket ban could also mean that social media companies do not innovate in ways that are more responsible in terms of harm for young people. There is a world, potentially, where social media is available for young people but does not have the addictive and other qualities that make it so harmful. But a blanket ban means that we don't have those innovation opportunities there, potentially, unless I think some changes made to this legislation. My second concern relates to privacy. Serious questions have been raised about how platforms will implement age assurance requirements, what data will be collected and how it will be stored or used. This could have significant implications, not just for children, but also for the adults who use the platforms. As the Tech Council noted in their submission to the Senate inquiry, the bill places a heavy onus on technology providers to verify age, which would need to be done for every user on the platform. The government has stated that the bill includes strict privacy controls and that any age assurance data will be swiftly deleted by the platform. I hope this is correct, but we are taking it on trust. My third concern relates to the new definition of social media and the use of legislative instruments. As the Digital Research Centre, Tech Council and others have noticed, this bill introduces a novel definition of social media, potentially adding to confusion in an already complex policy space. A huge amount of discretion is provided to the Minister to rule particular companies in or out of scope of the ban, causing confusion and uncertainty among technology companies. A few days ago, we heard that YouTube would be excluded from the ban. But what about Reddit or Strava or other platforms that emerge over time or perhaps evolve over time as well? Are these companies also going to be subject to the $50 million in fines that are applicable under this legislation? And will this inhibit innovation in the Australian tech sector, which is so important to us? And finally, the broader concern is whether this is actually going to work. There are challenges because of potential uses of VPNs, because of the evolution of platforms perhaps outside the ban. I can see a world where YouTube basically evolves to be TikTok, but without people being able to post. But will we end up with the same addictive qualities in a version of YouTube? That frankly means that TikTok is excluded, but YouTube it still creates those same social harms. When I spoke to my Youth Action Committee in Wentworth, when I spoke to groups of Year 5 and 6 students about this potential ban, as well as groups of Years 10 and 11 students about this ban, they all said, look, it's probably and possibly on balance a good idea. That was the overarching feeling, but a real concern that just isn't possible and it's just not practically going to work. And what we should be doing is really educating our young people and giving them the skills to manage social media. So I do still have those concerns, and I just don't know this is, frankly, ever going to work. Deputy Speaker, keeping kids safe online is one of the defining challenges of our time. My community wants to support the bill, but to the extent with it addresses challenges like online bullying, screen addiction and access to harmful content like pornography is still unclear. And for such a profound piece of legislation, the haste with which the government has rushed it through the parliament, the lack of engagement that has been undertaken with affected stakeholders, and the unanswered questions that remain for many parliamentarians is alarming. Even if done right, an age limit for social media is a blunt instrument and certainly not a silver bullet. It may make some difference for parents, and I hope it does, but it is not the systems-based approach that we need to make social media safe for all. I urge the government to delay the passing of the bill, undertake further consultation, do this better, and if needs be, bring the Parliament back early in the new year so we can properly consider this unprecedented piece of legislation. I want to keep kids safe from harm, but we need to do this in a responsible way, and rushing through legislation like this is not the way.